Well, welcome back once again to the Snyder Family Podcast. It's me, Sam, and my dad, and we're bringing you an episode on strong community. What does that look like? And, it's one of our three kind of core values, and so we're here to kind of go further into what does a strong community look like.
Okay, so we started out with last time with a strong family. A strong family talked about the four different pillars or points of a strong family.
Yeah.
And so when we move to community, it's based off of a strong family. So now when we move into community, we have to have strong families that affect a strong community.
Right.
So years ago, I was playing with words, and I looked at community, and I started to break apart that word.
You were playing with words.
I was playing with words,
Is
yeah.
that just your pastime?
Yeah. And so when I looked at community, I saw that in the middle of community was the word unit. And of course, to me, that right away was family. Mm-hmm. The family unit is the core of any community. In fact, it's the core of the nation. And I think we said in episode 1 that so goes the family, so goes the nation. Mm-hmm. So when I saw community and that unit, and then I broke that down even further, the unit, the family unit, really begins with you and I. Family doesn't necessarily mean kids. It can, and often does. But you and I, husband and wife, is the basic element of that unit. And based on our talk about strong families and having a faith-based foundation, marriage is between a husband and a wife for life. Mm-hmm. So you and I make up a unit, which is a basic foundation of any community. And then many units in a community, when they're unified or there's unity among those units, we talked about unity is not only is the family together, but the community is together. It's not uniform. Yeah. We're not talking about being uniform and everybody believing and doing and having the same things, but that we are united or unity around our community and what the community stands for, where the community is headed, and how we function as a community. And then you asked, what was the question you asked me just before we hit record?
Well, I was just asking, when was the time that you saw the community? We were from a small town, so it's easy for us to identify times where the community came together and made a difference. What are one of those times where you saw the community come together and they made a difference?
Okay. Actually, there's 3 times that I'm thinking of. First of all, when I was a kid in 1973, there was a national movement called Key 73, and it was a interfaith-based organization. I think it started with the Methodist Church, and they basically threw out a challenge to churches across the nation saying, let's make 1973 key. And what they meant was, let's do outreach in all of our communities. You do outreach or evangelism the way you want to do it, but let's all agree to do it. And Forest City was one of those communities. And the churches, our particular church had potlucks and spaghetti dinners. We invited guests in, and that was a critical year for me because that was when I gave my life to Christ. In 1973, I was 9 years old. Yeah. Then another time was when I was in junior high and we had a basketball team that was stellar. Great basketball team. We went to state and several times, but one state, I think it was 1976. And the whole community rallied around the high school student, these talented group of young men that were playing basketball, and we went down to state, and I just remember all the buses and the community fanfare and coming home and the parade, of sorts that just recognizing their accomplishment. The third time that I remember, and I'm sure there's way more than this, but these are just the ones that stand out in my mind. It was more recent, several years ago. I can't even tell you the year. It was within the past 10 years, I'm guessing. And one of our family friends and current neighbor put together an event, a large-scale event. They wanted to honor Vietnam veterans because during the Vietnam War, there was a lot of conflict in America. We shouldn't be involved in the Vietnam War. They wanted a lot of young people wanted peace, and they didn't want to be engaged in war. A lot of people avoided the draft, and so when the Vietnam veterans came home, they didn't get a good welcome home. They actually they were poorly treated, mistreated. And so a friend of mine, Riley, he wanted to put together an event that would honor and try and recapture a homecoming that we as America could be proud of and honor those that were in the war. And so he planned with a group of men, planned and had all these wonderful things happen. And, I think it was a year and a half or longer that they planned it. We had over 25,000 people. Now, our town is 4,300 people. So having 25,000 people converge on our little town to honor the veterans.
Could you mute that?
Yeah. If you haven't yet, mute your phone. You're probably watching on it. Sorry about that. I don't know what's going on. I'll put it on the floor. Anyway, these men put together quite an event. I think we had a replica of the wall come. We had helicopter rides. We had
I remember
speakers. You remember that?
That was sweet.
Remember the helicopter ride? That was awesome. And they tried to actually drive the helicopter like they would have been in the war zone. So they would tip and stuff. Mm-hmm. It was really cool. But some of the stories that came out of that were quite amazing. And I don't even have all of them. I wasn't on the inside of the planning or the results, but I did hear some very good things. A couple of the veterans, they had a trailer for people that could go in and receive counseling or talk about their experience. And it was extremely healing for them. And this is 50-some years after Vietnam. And so I just see the community came together, and what I think Riley's intent was let's honor these men and women. Let's help them to heal. Let's give them what they deserve. And it was really a community gathering, community. We were unified behind it, and it turned out very, very well. So that was an example of unity and when a community came together.
Makes such an impact.
It did. And a lasting impact.
But it was a result of...
That's not me.
That is you.
My sound is off. What's going on? My sound is off. Look. Watch. I'll show you. It goes on. Silent. Oh, sorry. Sorry, fans.
Do I need to take your phone away?
Okay. I don't know what's going on. We're just trying to talk. Okay, so what else did I see in the word community? At the first part was COMM. We've talked about you and I, unit, unity. COM, what did that ring to me? Well, there were three words that came to mind. First of all was committed. The units, the families that make up a community are committed to the community. We don't take it for advantage or for granted. You're involved in some way in helping make a stronger community, in whatever way, being a part of the workforce, being a part of the government, as we talked about earlier, local government, being part of a organization or club that meets, serving as coaches and volunteers in schools. But the other thing is communication. Strong communities have clear communication. We have a great chamber, and it lets us know of events and things that are coming up. I think the council, city council, does a good job of communicating with us about things that are happening in our community. And then there's another sub-layer of communication that, not on such a public level, on a private level, I think resolving conflict by communicating when there's conflict. And I wouldn't be privy to how many families are, what's the Hatfields and what's the the historic group that had two families feuding all the time, the McCormicks and the Hatfields. I don't think there's anything like that in Forest City. But in our community, just communicating clearly with neighbors and we have a great neighborhood where we live, and I would say that we're friends and we help each other out.
Well, it's just like a bigger family,
Correct.
You have your family unit, but then kind of these things that you're talking about also bridge out into the community, which allows for greater impact, like you talked about with Operation LZ, and it allows for, if you're in need, if you need help with anything, like that's what the community is there for. And so when you have strong families, it leads to this strong community like we're talking about.
Right. And, there's I've been thinking of other things that the community came together on. We used to have a big country festival or music festival that came to. First few years, there was tens of thousands of people that came to that. And just 25 families that chipped in, pitched together, and made that happen. It takes the community to do that. Mm-hmm. So we had communication or commitment and communication, and the last one is common sense. And what I think about when I think about common sense, there are trends that happen in a nation, and the community does not necessarily have to participate in that when it goes against common sense. I'm thinking of, you have to be 16 to drive alone. You have to be 18 to vote, 21 to drink, and yet there was a string of thought for a while that at 6 you could change your gender. You could choose to change your gender at age 6. Now that's not common. That's not common sense. Yeah. I don't know where that. Well, I do know where it comes from, but. That's just, you don't go along with that. Or when, all of a sudden there's talk of men using women bathrooms, women using men's bathrooms. No, that's just not common sense. And when people have what it used to be called gender dysphoria, where they were confused about who they were and what they came in, I've had done a lot of thinking about that. I'm not sure that's always the fault of the person individually. But that's for another discussion, another time. Anyway, so I just think that the community can exercise its freedoms and its common sense. And, if you back up the chain with communication and commitment and unity, to form a community that's strong and stands against ridiculousness. I don't even know if that's a word, but, it seems like that when there's a strong nation such as America, a leading nation, a prosperous nation, a militarily strong and expansive nation, there's always an attack to try and ransack that country. And we have to stand together as a community in unity with commitment, communication, and common sense.
Yeah. And so I think a takeaway and a call to action for this would be, how can you get involved in your community? Yes. What can you do if you feel like your family is strong and you
That's a good point. Start with the family.
Start with your family. Like if there's things that you guys need to work on, if there's boundaries that you need to set, or if you're not emotionally healthy, like
spend a little time
working on that. Make your family strong, and then look to pour out into the nation. You can volunteer at your church. You can volunteer for your community through charities or whatever like that, but start to look outside yourself. Once you get your family,
well, you don't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect,
right?
But there's a sense of working on the family first, and then reach out,
because that's how you control the direction of a nation. And it starts small with you personally, then your family, then your community, then the nation.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah,
and what
and it doesn't have to be huge 25,000 people operations, but small.
It can be public or private. It can be small or big.
Yeah, anything that you can do to make an impact in somebody's life, in other people's life, to make the community better. And
that's right. And we're talking about just the fabric of America. Mm-hmm. Just the fabric of America is made up of individual units of families. And so we have to strengthen and encourage, elevate and encourage the family so that they're strong, which then strengthens the community and the nation. Yeah.
So I ask you guys, what are you guys doing in your communities? Are there things that you guys have done or set up or been a part of, or is there a testimony? Have you been helped from a community event? Why don't you just post something in the comments or send us an email?
How your strong community helped you or helped your area.
Start to build just a lot of testimonies about what's going on around the nation.
Or what God's doing in your community.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we just wrapped up podcast number 4 on strong communities. And we really believe that strong families create strong communities and will translate into a stronger nation. And we are already seeing things, not that what we've done, but we're already seeing God move in our country. Just watched a real short clip from a young man saying that the Barna Research did its largest study ever on 30,000 Gen Z people, and they are the most open group of people to the gospel, to Jesus Christ ever. And so he was saying, if you have been praying for our country and for kids, your prayers are being answered. So, it reminds me of a few years back, I woke up in the middle of the night, and I had clearly the word hand imprinted in my mind, in my heart, and my hand, right here, and it was an acronym, HAND, and I love acronyms. And the Lord said that he was healing a nation divided, and he was giving America a hand up. And I thought, wow, that's powerful. And so it's been exciting. I would have to say I was a little bit waiting for it, but I'm seeing more and more signs of that each week, each month now. And so it's exciting. I wonder what's going to happen in the next few years. All right, join us next time for another podcast, Snyder Family Podcast.